Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanachhalakaya चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपः कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरोः श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं सागरजातं सहगणा रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं प्रजनासहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्री राधा कृष्ण पादान सहगण ललिता श्री विशाखान्वितांश्च हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेशा गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी भानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वंशकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौरभक्तवृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्ण पृष्ठाय पादाय कृष्ण पृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमती वेदांत स्वामी नामने नमस्ते सरस्वती गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष निवाद पाश्चात्य वाचालम बंगम वंदे गिरिम यत्पादमहं वंदे श्रीगुरुं दीनतारिणं परमानंद माधवम श्री चैतन्येश्वरम हरि ओम हरे कृष्ण so we are continuing our discussion on chapter 6 of the Madhya Lila, the Chaitanya Charitamrita, as a part of our Chaitanya Pravaha overview series to get a overview of the divine pastimes of Lord Chaitanya. We are especially fortunate that in this particular Divya Yuga, this Kali Yuga, which is a part of a Divya Yuga, which is the 28th Divya Yuga of the 7th Manvantar, Vaivasvat Manvantar, of the first day of the 51st year of our Lord Brahma, Chaturmukh Brahma, where both Lord Sri Krishna personally, the original Supreme Personality of Godhead, appears in Dwapar Yuga, the conclusion of Dwapar Yuga, and the Lord again appears as Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the immediately following Kali Yuga to demonstrate by his own life and teachings how to follow the instructions he has given in the Gita in his incarnation as Sri Krishna. As a part of the Madhya Lila, we are discussing pastimes of Lord Chaitanya which are related to his pastimes as a sannyasi. The Lord has now moved to Sri Jagannath Puri Dham instead of going to Vrindavan, and he's residing there with his close associates. We are in that part of the pastimes where the Lord has just very recently entered Jagannath Puri Dham, and we are discussing his first encounter with a key personality in Jagannath Puri. The name of that personality is Sri Sravabhauma Bhattacharya. Why he's of significance? I'm just quickly recapping what we have discussed. He's of significance because not only is he an elderly, very, very learned Brahman Pandit, but he is like the Rajguru, the king, Prataparudra, the king of Orissa, and he's also in charge of the sevas of Jagannath temple. So you can see he's the overall manager of the temple operations. In fact, so much so that from his home, which is just next to the Shweta Ganga, just 5-10 minutes walk from Jagannath Mandir, front of the Simhadwar, if you just close by, if you go further down the road, just few minutes, almost a straight walk. You'll reach the house of Sravabhauma Bhattacharya. That home is still there. And from the home of Sravabhauma Bhattacharya, there is an underground tunnel which opens straight somewhere near the altar of Lord Jagannath. So the opening of that tunnel is still visible if you go to the house of Sravabhauma Bhattacharya even today. But of course, it hasn't been used for centuries, and I think it has been closed from the other side now. So of course, the whole history is not known, but you can imagine how important this personality must be. That imagine from your home, you have a passage into Jagannath temple, not just any temple that you built in your village. Just a quick mention about the significance of Lord Jagannath. It is said our Lord Brahma, who's for 100 years, who's now just started his 51st year. The current day of Brahma is the first day of his 51st year. So he's actually 50 years and 1 day old. Actually, he's in his first day, so even the first day hasn't completed. Around half a day old. Because we are in the 7th Manvantar out of 14. The first half of Brahma's life, the predominating deity, the main deity of the universe is said to be Lila Madhav. And in the second half of Brahma's life, the main deity for the universe is Jagannath. So Lord Jagannath will continue to be worshipped for the rest of the lifetime of Lord Brahma in our universe. Of course, the worship generally continues time to time based on the influence of the time factor. It gets sometimes temporarily interrupted by, of course, by the sweet will of the Lord. Nobody can spoil his will, but generally, for the rest of the period of Brahma's lifetime, Lord Jagannath. So why I'm mentioning this, that is the significance of this deity. And this personality had a direct passage from his home. He has a veranda, a sitting place in his home, and just next to it, there is a passage opening. Morning, take bath, get ready, don't even have to go through the streets. Just straight go and directly come in the altar. Anyway, so very extraordinary personality, very powerful personality, very learned personality. As we discussed, an incarnation of Brihaspati. We discussed about the interesting pastime of how when he saw Lord Chaitanya in an ecstatic mood, faint in front of the deity of Lord Jagannath, he brought him home. And eventually the other associates of the Lord came. Gopinath Acharya, his brother-in-law, who's already a great devotee of Lord Chaitanya, he was so happy and he tried to make Sravabhauma Bhattacharya understand that this sannyasi whom you are admitting is a great person is not just a great person and a sannyasi, but he's the supreme personality of Godhead. So Sravabhauma Bhattacharya is very respectful towards Lord Chaitanya, very affectionate towards Lord Chaitanya because he's very young. He's like his younger than probably his son's age. So beautiful, so effulgent. And he can understand that he's a very advanced personality by seeing the Ashta Sattvika Vikar that he has displayed. He's himself wondering that no ordinary living entity can actually display this kind of ecstatic symptoms. But still, he's not able to figure out who this personality is. Gopinath Acharya is saying. So when Sravabhauma Bhattacharya tells him that, oh, we should get him reinitiated into a better sannyas class, Gopinath Acharya says, Are Baba, he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He has taken sannyas just to execute a purpose. You don't try to upgrade his sannyas. His main purpose is not sannyas. Don't worry about his elevation. He is here to deliver all of us. But Sravabhauma Bhattacharya is not able to understand. And Gopinath Acharya tells him on his face, because you have not received the favor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, you cannot understand this. Because these things cannot simply be understood by logic and simply by telling. The secrets about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the secrets about devotional service, about prema, the secrets about devotees and pure devotees and devotional service is understood only when one receives the favor of the Lord. So, I'm not surprised you cannot understand, because even though you are learned in the Vedas, you cannot understand because you are not received it. Because he's not too, because they are very close as brother-in-law and as brothers-in-law, they don't mind arguing and pulling each other verbally, not physically. So we discussed how Sravabhauma Bhattacharya, being very affectionate to Lord Chaitanya, tells him that you must study the Vedanta and I will teach you Vedanta. And every day they would sit in Jagannath's temple, and for 7 days Sravabhauma Bhattacharya is going on speaking about the Shariraka Bhashya, which is the commentary of Shankaracharya on the Vedanta Sutras. So the Vedanta Sutras, just so that in case you are not clear, Vedanta Sutra is the work which Vyasadeva wrote as the summary of all the Vedanta, especially the summary of the Upanishads. Vedanta means the Upanishads. And after he wrote all the Upanishads, he wrote a simple summary of the Upanishads in terms of aphorisms. Sutra. Aphorism means sutras. Just so that you can easily remember. This is the conclusion. This is the conclusion. This is the conclusion. So that is considered the conclusive work from the Vedantic perspective, but actually the conclusive work which Vyasadeva wrote is the Bhagavad, because he wrote the Bhagavad even after the Vedanta Sutra, because even after writing the Vedanta Sutra, he was not happy and fully satisfied. And in fact, as is explained in the Bhagavad itself, as well as in other Puranas, Arthoyam Brahma Sutranam, that the Artha of the Brahma Sutras has been described in the Bhagavad in great detail. But those who are Jnanis, those who are not devotees, those who have not received favor of the Lord, those who are not attracted to devotional service of the Lord, are unable to appreciate the Bhagavad. Instead, they try to apply mundane logic and philosophical analysis, the Vedanta Sutras, to try to understand the Supreme Absolute Truth through intellectual analysis. And that's why they oftentimes become bewildered. And that was one of the key points that even Gopinath Acharya was disapproving of Sravabhauma Bhattacharya. But of course, Sravabhauma Bhattacharya, being a very dry logician, was actually unable to appreciate. But the great good fortune of Sravabhauma Bhattacharya was, and this is something for all of us to remember, because this whole chapter is entitled what? The Deliverance of Sravabhauma Bhattacharya, of how Sravabhauma Bhattacharya, an impersonalistic, Mayavadi, Vedantist, became a pure devotee. That is where this chapter is leading towards. We haven't reached that conclusion yet, but in the process of discussing. And the key point to remember is Sravabhauma Bhattacharya was very fortunate to receive the mercy of Lord Chaitanya because he received the mercy of a devotee of Lord Chaitanya in the form of Gopinath Acharya. So Gopinath Acharya was so keen that he receives bhakti. And on top of that, Sravabhauma Bhattacharya in so many ways tried to serve Lord Chaitanya. So that also helped him to gather the necessary sukriti and attract the mercy, which would actually lead to his transformation. And this is the wonderful thing. Even if we do not know who's a great devotee, even if we do not know who's the Lord, somehow if we engage in their service or we receive their favor, it results in the birth of our good fortune. So all of us, those who have that transcendental faith, have somehow at some time, some way, either in this lifetime or previous lifetimes, been the recipient of that kind of blessing because of our Agyata Sukritis and also because of the compassion that great souls have bestowed on us, either causelessly or because we somehow knowingly, unknowingly rendered some service to them. So for 7 days, Sravabhauma Bhattacharya continued to instruct Lord Chaitanya. Every day they would sit for many hours and Lord Chaitanya would quietly listen. Sravabhauma Bhattacharya, after 7-8 days, he asked Lord Chaitanya, why are you not speaking anything? Why are you not asking any question? I don't understand whether you understand or you don't understand. And Lord Chaitanya says, I'm just summarizing, says that actually I understand the Vedanta Sutra, but I don't understand what you are talking. So he becomes like, what do you mean? Correct. If you're a lecturer, you give lecture on a topic, and at the end of the class, the student says, I fully understood the lesson which is given in the book, but what you are talking makes no sense. It's basically saying something like that. So anyway, then there was this very interesting debate, and Lord Chaitanya, and we discussed that in the last class. Essentially, Lord Chaitanya defeated Sravabhauma Bhattacharya by explaining to him that the Shariraka Bhashya explanation that Shankaracharya gives actually clouds the real meaning of the Vedanta Sutra, because the real meaning of the Vedanta Sutra is actually self-effulgent like the noonday sun. That Vyasdev has clearly explained that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the energy and this world is a manifestation of the Lord's energy. That the world itself is not an illusion, but the illusion is that the Jiva thinks of himself as the body. But the world is not an illusion. The world is illusory. It is temporary. The world is not God, but the world is the energy of God. That is why the world is within God. So he emphasizes the principle of Shakti Parinamavad. He says that the Lord doesn't undergo transformation. The Lord's energies undergo transformation. The Lord is never affected, even though his energies undergo transformation. Just like a touchstone can touch iron and make it gold, but the touchstone remains unaffected. So this concept has been explained many times in the scriptures in many, many different ways. For example, even though it's not quoted here, the Ishopanishad very clearly says, Om Purnamadha Purnamidam Purnata Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Vashishyate. That from the Supreme Whole, so many complete units come. But even after so many complete units come, the original complete doesn't become reduced. He doesn't get transformed. He continues to remain the complete whole. So that is the inconceivable potency of the Supreme Lord. This cannot be fathomed and understood by material logic, because in the material world, we cannot see this kind of an example. You unlimitedly take out of something and still the original is unlimited. It's never reduced. So he says, please take the direct meaning. Why are you making why are you trying to give a speculative interpretation of the sutras. And then he also clarifies by saying that actually Shankaracharya is not at fault. Shankaracharya, whose Lord Shiva himself is fully conversant with the real conclusions of the Vedas, because he's an incarnation of the Lord in the form of Lord Shiva, but he gave this explanation as was explained in the Padma Puran, where he himself reveals that he was instructed by Lord Hari to come in this world and give this kind of an interpretation so as to mislead the atheistic people so that they do not meddle in the real confidential knowledge of the Vedas. That actually the Vedas simply deal with three topics: Sambandha, Abhideya, Prayojan. The relationship between the Jiva and the Supreme Lord, the process of reawakening that relationship, and the final desirable goal of prema, of love of Godhead, which is the ultimate attainment for the living entity. So obviously, Sravabhauma Bhattacharya was not one to just simply give in so easily, and he tried very hard to argue with Lord Chaitanya. The details of all the arguments are not mentioned here, this particular in the Chaitanya Charitamrita itself, because it's essentially summarizing. All philosophical arguments Lord Chaitanya defeated, and then finally because he was wondering how is it possible that Shankaracharya was wrong. Sometimes devotees also become, when new devotees become very upset. How are you saying Shankaracharya is wrong? He's such a great personality. What are you people thinking? You think you are smart, you know more than Shankaracharya. We're talking about Adi Shankaracharya. So we don't think Shankaracharya himself did not know. But as per Shastra, Shankaracharya performed a particular seva for a particular reason. And after Lord Chaitanya quoted verses from Padma Puran, to establish this, because how to establish this? We cannot simply say, oh, I think he was doing. No. There is a quote where it is predicted, where Lord Shiva himself says, not somebody says about Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva is himself telling Parvati that in Kali Yuga, I will come and I will give this kind of an imaginary interpretation to delude people in general. Mayavadam asat shastram prachannam bodham uchyate mayaiva kalpitam devi kalo brahman. This is one of the verses, there's another verse. So when Sravabhauma Bhattacharya heard all this, and he heard that, oh, this was the purpose of Adi Shankaracharya, he immediately became silent. He was stunned. He didn't know what to say. He was defeated in logical arguments. Now he was defeated from Shastric logic, from Shastric quotes. Then Lord Chaitanya quoted a very beautiful verse to establish the super excellence of devotional service on the basis of the Bhagavad, by quoting a very, very famous verse from the Bhagavad. Atma ramascha munayo nirgrantha api urukrame kurvanti ahetukim bhaktim thamputo guno harihi. That even the self-satisfied sages, self-realized Atmaram, perform devotional service to the Supreme Lord, even though they are free from all material desires. Why? Because so attractive are the transcendental qualities of the Supreme Lord, because they are full of spiritual potency. So those liberated souls are not attracted to anything material. No material beauty attracts them. But the beauty of the Lord's name, form, qualities, pastimes is very attractive. What does that mean? He's quoting this verse essentially to establish that the Lord's form and beauty and qualities and pastimes are not of the quality of Maya, which means they are not material. They are not even Sattva Guna. They are beyond. They are spiritual in nature. Otherwise, how liberated souls will get attracted? Those are already beyond For example, Hanumanji. Why is Hanumanji always attracted to Ram Katha? Isn't he fully liberated? Everybody accepts him as fully realized. Lord Shiva himself is meditating on the name, form, quality, pastimes of Ram and Sankarshan. Obviously, they must be spiritual in nature. Lord Shiva is the controller of Maya. Why will he be attracted to something in Sattva-guna? So when Lord Chaitanya quoted the Atmaram verse to establish the conclusion that he just had arrived at, his argument with Sravabhauma Bhattacharya, Sravabhauma Bhattacharya requested Lord Chaitanya, oh, you have quoted this verse is very interesting. Please explain the meaning of this verse to me. I want to understand what is your understanding of this verse. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, he took a humble position, said, oh, Bhattacharya, you are so learned. You are just like Brihaspati. Why don't you explain? You are so learned. You explain what is the meaning. So Sravabhauma Bhattacharya started giving explanation according to his understanding for the Atmaram verse. And he gave 9 different meanings of that particular verse. Lord Chaitanya just smiled. Of course, all those explanations were from an impersonal perspective. So Bhattacharya then asked Lord Chaitanya, can you please explain what is your understanding of this verse? Then Lord Chaitanya, without even touching the 9 explanations which are given by Sravabhauma Bhattacharya, explained the verse in another 18 ways. All from the perspective of your devotional service. And Sravabhauma Bhattacharya was stunned. Not only he explained the verse and how even the most liberated souls are attracted by the devotional service of the Lord. Not only he explained the verse, but he also gave examples from Shastra to substantiate this particular verse. And he gives 2 specific examples. One is the example of Shukadeva Goswami. Shukadeva Goswami was born as a Brahman realized soul, liberated soul. It is said for 16 years he did not come out from his mother's womb. His father is Vyasa. For 16 years, he refused. Can you imagine? His mother was pregnant for 16 years. Yes. I think what to do. And he was not willing to come out because he said, I don't want to come out in this material world. I am liberated. Why I want to get involved in all this Maya? So Shukadeva Goswami was refusing. Finally, Vyasadeva asked Lord Krishna to come. He said, you please help out. He's not listening. Then when Krishna requested him, he came out to honor what the Lord said, but immediately walked away from home. Because he was already 16 years. In the body of a 16-year-old. He wasn't a baby anymore. So anyway, so he was of that platform of absolute detachment. It is said, as he was walking away, Vyasadeva started reciting the Bhagavad. And as the verses of Krishna's beauty and Krishna's transcendental personality and character were being recited, this personality who had not the least attraction for anything material became suddenly attracted. Atma ramascha munayo nirgranthapi same kurvanti ahitani. Sing to the soul. What subject is this? It is so pleasing. So then he was called back. Come. Then he came back and he said, okay, I will stay, but you must teach me this particular book because this book is so satisfying to the soul. Even though I am Atmaram, it is so satisfying. So then Vyasadeva taught the Srimad Bhagavad to Shukadeva Goswami. That's how he learned. And then, of course, he narrates it later to Parikshit Maharaj. So that is one example which Chaitanya Mahaprabhu quotes. And the other example is that of the four Kumaras, or the sons of Brahma, who are also fully self-realized. They were so advanced and so detached from everything material that they remained of 5-year-old babies in their external bodily form, so that they will never be attracted to the things which grown-up men get attracted to. And they, when they went to Vaikuntha, check out Vaikuntha, simply by smelling the flowers and the tulsi leaves offered to the lotus feet of Lord Narayan, and their hearts became attracted to devotional service. So Shukadev Goswami became a pure devotee. The four Kumaras became pure devotees. So how come, if they were already fully liberated souls, what could have attracted them unless that attraction was at a platform higher than that of liberation? So that's the argument. So there is sufficient evidence, not only in the form of verses, but there are examples and stories in the scriptures. So when Sravabhauma Bhattacharya heard all this, he was like totally floored. He reached the conclusion, this kind of learning, this kind of understanding, this person, like what Gopinath Acharya said, this person must be the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna. Because he himself is not ordinary, he is Brihaspati. So he knows what learning is. And then falling in front of Lord Chaitanya, he started to condemn himself. Lord Chaitanya is Krishna himself, but because I am so proud of my learning, I have committed so many offenses to him. And he began to, condemn himself like this. So that Lord Chaitanya noticed how he was so repentful. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, to show him mercy, immediately displayed his form as the Supreme Personality of Godhead to Sravabhauma Bhattacharya. He showed him his four-armed Vishnu form. Sravabhauma Bhattacharya is like, wow. Lord himself. And after showing him the four-armed Vishnu form, transformed himself into the two-armed form of Krishna, Sham Sundar, with a flute at his lips. Sravabhauma Bhattacharya, so overwhelmed, he fell down flat, offering Dandavat obeisances to Lord Chaitanya, and he started folded arms, folded hands, offering beautiful prayers to Lord Chaitanya. Lord Chaitanya bestowed his complete mercy to Sravabhauma Bhattacharya and all the understanding of the scriptures that had been all this while elusive to Sravabhauma Bhattacharya, even though he knew all the scriptures. He knew in terms of the verses and content, but still the actual conclusion and the real meaning of the scriptures was elusive. But now the real Tattva Jnana appeared in the heart of Sravabhauma Bhattacharya. The truth became understood. This is a very deep and important sacred principle that we as devotees must understand and appreciate. There's a beautiful verse in the scripture. It's not quoted here, but I think it's quoted elsewhere. Yasya deve para bhakti yatha deve tatha guru tasyate kathite hi artha prakashante hi mahatmanah. He who has full faith in the Lord and the spiritual master, him, all the secrets of the Vedic knowledge become revealed within the heart. So while we should, of course, make endeavor to understand by applying our intelligence, ultimately, Shastra and the conclusions of Shastra are understood and realized. They are revealed from within when Guru and Krishna becomes pleased. And suddenly, and many devotees have had this experience amongst us as sadhakas. The things which are not understood suddenly become understood without any apparent logical explanation. So this just means that the Lord has been pleased to reveal the confidential meaning. So at one time Gopinath Acharya understood, but he didn't understood. Now Sarvam Bhattacharya, also having received the mercy, was able to fully understand the conclusions. He became so overwhelmed. Instantly with that realization of that knowledge and with that instant transformation of his heart and feeling such intense gratitude towards Lord Chaitanya, Sarvam Bhattacharya was so overwhelmed. Being such a great Pandit, he immediately started composing verses in glorification of Lord Chaitanya. 100 verses on the spot. He didn't say, can I come back after 2 weeks? I have to sit down under a tree. Or go to Chat GPT and ask, please compose poetry. Nowadays, Chat GPT can compose poetry also. Today, somebody forwarded to me. I was going to forward it on our group, but I didn't. Today is ISKCON's Incorporation Day anniversary. Somebody went to Chat GPT and said, please write a poem about ISKCON. 10-15 poetic verses glorifying ISKCON and what ISKCON is doing and how it is. If you want, I can forward it later. It's quite interesting. So, Sarvam Bhattacharya, 100 verses. And these verses are still available. They are not quoted here, Chaitanya Charitamrita, but those verses are compiled. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he recited all those verses, not just wrote them. He was uttering them, and Lord Chaitanya was so pleased on this very humble and devotional offering of Sarvam Bhattacharya. Lord Chaitanya embraced Sarvam Bhattacharya with great affection. And what will happen if God embraces you? You'll be overwhelmed in ecstatic love, and he just fell on the ground unconscious. Bhattacharya was crying and crying. His body was trembling. It was stunned. It was perspiring, trembling. Suddenly he would get up and start jumping and dancing, and the kind of mad-like symptoms which Lord Chaitanya was displaying. Suddenly Sravabhauma Bhattacharya started displaying this Sattvika Vikaras. Of course, not to the same extent as Lord Chaitanya, because nobody can match the ecstatic symptoms because they are of the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. But of that type, perspiration, trembling, dancing, laughing, rolling on the ground. And Gopinath Acharya also happened to be there, witnessing all of this, and he was very happy. That was the time he was waiting for, when my brother-in-law will be transformed to become a devotee. So Lord Chaitanya had reciprocated with that intense desire of Gopinath Acharya. Gopinath Acharya thanked Lord Chaitanya. He said, oh, my dear sir, thank you so much. I am so happy to see what you have done to this Sravabhauma Bhattacharya. And Lord Chaitanya, very humbly, he gave all credit to Gopinath Acharya. He said, you are a devotee. Because of your association and your kindness, Krishna has shown compassion to Sravabhauma Bhattacharya. And this is the truth. You see how powerful the desire of a devotee. The devotees are so dear to the Supreme Personality of Godhead that when the devotees want to give the mercy of Krishna to some individuals, maybe because they are close relatives, maybe for some reason they are affectionately disposed towards them, that actually attracts very powerfully the mercy of the Lord to transform those people. So that is a very great good fortune. So we should always look at being, receiving the favorable glance of great souls. And obviously, if it is the other way around, it can be very destructive. Which means if we are offending and angering them, that can also be very dangerous. So then Lord Chaitanya made an endeavor to control Sravabhauma Bhattacharya because he was, in a totally different mood. And somehow he quieted him. And Sravabhauma Bhattacharya, when he became a little bit sober, he started saying, "Oh, my dear Lord, it is so amazing what you have done today. Actually, you are so great. You have come to deliver the whole world and you will deliver the whole world. But that is not a great thing. The great thing is you have delivered me. Why? Because my heart is so hard, like stone. I am so fallen. I am so ordinary. The fact that you have melted a hard-hearted, dull-headed person like me, you are very, very merciful. I had become so dry in simply shastric logical arguments. I was not able to discern the real conclusion of the scriptures. But today you have given your mercy. So in that way, he started glorifying Lord Chaitanya. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was happy. After that, this episode concluded. So Lord Chaitanya went back to his place. And then Sravabhauma Bhattacharya then later asked Gopinath Acharya, you please go and invite Lord Chaitanya again to our home for lunch. So it is said, early the next day morning, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, as always, he would go and take the darshan of Lord Jagannath early in the morning. And especially that particular day, he took the darshan where the Jagannath was just being woken up. The services of the Lord's rising from bed were being performed. After Jagannath's early morning worship was performed, the pujaris, the pandas who were worshipping Jagannath, gave some Mahaprasad and some garlands of Lord Jagannath as Maha to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu very carefully packed all that prasad and garlands in a cloth. He was very happy to receive, and taking that, he came to the home of Sravabhauma Bhattacharya. Now this is the new Sravabhauma Bhattacharya, the transformed one. And by the time he reached the house of Sravabhauma Bhattacharya, it was just before sunrise. It wasn't even sunrise, and Sravabhauma Bhattacharya was just waking up from his bed. So suddenly he wakes up and he sees, oh, Lord Chaitanya is here, and he's so happy, and with great haste he gets up, sees Lord Chaitanya and offers respects to him. He offers a nice seat to Lord Chaitanya, and then both of them sit, and with folded hands he's in front of Bhattacharya. Of course, Bhattacharya has just woken up from his bed, he has not done anything. Sometimes you go so early to somebody's house, somebody's just gotten up from there, not brushed his teeth, not taken bath, nothing. And as soon as Bhattacharya comes in front of him and gives him a seat and sits down, because of course it is his duty to attend to his guest, that to the Supreme Lord. And Lord Chaitanya says, oh, I'm just coming from Jagannath's temple, here is some Mahaprasad and garland for you. And Sravabhauma Bhattacharya is so happy to receive the Mahaprasad of Lord Jagannath. They said immediately he took some of Jagannath's Mahaprasad and he started honoring it immediately, without brushing his teeth, without having taken bath, which is typically not done by any Brahmana. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu observed this, and actually Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu began smiling. Seeing Lord Chaitanya smiling, Sravabhauma Bhattacharya, of course Lord was smiling because Sravabhauma Bhattacharya actually understood the value of Mahaprasad. He understood how Mahaprasad should be respected. And then Sravabhauma Bhattacharya quotes two verses from scriptures, where it is said that when Mahaprasad of the Lord is brought and presented to us, the right etiquette is to immediately honor it. Irrespective of what material condition one is. And that prasad, even if the prasad is dried or it is stale or it is brought from a long place, irrespective of time, place, circumstance, and any other consideration, one should honor the. That is the way to honor the prasad. Because prasad is not different from the Supreme Personality of God. So he quotes two verses saying this, that one should never hesitate. And this is the instruction of the Supreme. Because that is how one respects prasad. Of course, this doesn't mean, and again, for all of us from a very practical perspective, yes, this principle we should also still follow, but honoring prasad doesn't mean we have to eat all of it. So the way we honor prasad is, as soon as Mahaprasad is offered, of course, if it is lunchtime and all that, then we can of course pick up it. But otherwise, at least we should take a little pinch and accept prasad and honor it. That is the right way. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very pleased, because Sravabhauma Bhattacharya now was able to value Krishna's prasad properly. So he was very, very happy. In fact, Lord Chaitanya was so happy, he embraced Sravabhauma Bhattacharya out of happiness. And Sravabhauma Bhattacharya, being touched by the Lord, again went into ecstasy. And both of them started to dance. Again, showing all kinds of ecstatic symptoms. Trembling, dancing, tears, perspiration. And Lord Chaitanya was ecstatically claiming that I am so happy today, because today the great Sravabhauma Bhattacharya has acquired faith in Jagannath's Mahaprasad. This day is very auspicious. And Lord Chaitanya says, this is the proof that Krishna has been merciful to you. What is the proof? When one can see in the personality of a sadhaka that he has developed proper appreciation and faith, the Lord, in the holy name, the prasad, the devotees, in the scriptures, then one can understand one has actually received the faith. Correct? That's the prayer which we recite before prasad, isn't it? Mahaprasade Govinde Nama Brahmani Vaishnave Salpa Punyavatam Rajan Vishwasanai Vajayate. That one cannot develop faith in the holy name, in the devotees and the Mahaprasad of the Lord, unless one has accumulated great amount of spiritual merit. So here he was displaying the faith in the Mahaprasad. So in that way, the Lord glorified him. So like this beautiful episode happened, and the Lord was so happy. Of course, after that interaction, the Lord went back to his own residence, which was in Gambhira. So Lord Sravabhauma Bhattacharya, after this particular point, was very transformed man. From a proud Vedantist, he had now become a humble devotee. His pride was totally dismantled. This is also the symptom of transformation. Prinadapi sunichena tarurapi sahishna amanina manade Chaitanya sadahari. Whenever Sravabhauma Bhattacharya going forward would meet Lord Chaitanya, he would fall flat, dandavat, and offer him respects, and also continuously express remorse. Oh, you know what I did previously, I didn't understand you. I was trying to instruct you. I said this and that about you. So it is said one time, Sravabhauma Bhattacharya came to Lord Chaitanya and asked Lord Chaitanya, I have a question for you. There are so many aspects of devotional service. Please tell me what is the most important aspect of devotional service? And Lord Chaitanya's immediate answer to him is the most important aspect of devotional service is the chanting of the holy name of the Lord. And immediately Lord Chaitanya quoted the verse from Brihannaradya Puran. Harer Nama, Harer Nama, Harer Namaiva Kevalam, Kalau Nastaiva 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 Gatiram. You see, all these conversations, they are full of quotes from scriptures. Because, when great saintly people speak, they don't just give, oh, I think so. You think so. My family thinks so. We have been doing this. That's why it is like this. Not all scripture really based. No other way, no other way, no other way. 3 times. And then Lord Chaitanya very elaborately explained the meaning of this verse. Sravabhauma Bhattacharya. Sravabhauma Bhattacharya was very, very happy to hear it. And the detailed explanation is essentially that in other ages, there were other methods of spiritual perfection, but in this age, only by chanting the holy name, one can achieve the same benefit. Krite yadhyayato Vishnum Tritayam yajato makhi dvapare paricharyayam kalau tad harikirtan. So, after hearing this explanation, Sravabhauma Bhattacharya was fully satisfied. He was very, very happy. And Gopinath Acharya was also so happy. He was also seeing what is going on, and he told Sravabhauma Bhattacharya, see, I had told you. You remember what I told you long time back? And very humbly, Sravabhauma Bhattacharya says, yes, I remember. You had told me long time back that you will not understand the real conclusions of scriptures until you receive the mercy of Lord. Now that I have received the mercy of the Lord, because of your showing mercy to me, now I have understood and I have become a devotee. In fact, my good fortune has come because I am related to you. You are a devotee. Because of your showing mercy to me, Krishna has shown mercy to me. So he was very, very grateful. And this gratitude is also very, very important. All those who have been the cause of our good fortune, directly or indirectly, either as Patha Pradarshak, Gurus, Shiksha Gurus, or ultimately our Diksha Guru, like Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, he is so grateful. He says, Vande Ham Shri Gurun, the beginning of Chaitanya Charitam. I offer my respects to all my teachers. So he was very, very happy and very grateful to Gopinath Acharya. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was overhearing this conversation and was very appreciative. This quality of gratitude is something which Krishna is very pleased to observe in the personality of a devotee. Krishna never likes to see his devotee take credit, even though Krishna is eager to give credit to his devotee. Krishna doesn't like his devotee to claim credit. Krishna always likes to see his devotee give credit to his other devotees, that I am fortunate because I have been made fortunate by the blessings of the Lord and his devotees. So that is the right attitude for all of us. You can see from this. And when Sravabhauma Bhattacharya expressed this kind of consciousness, Lord Chaitanya was very pleased. And he again embraced Sravabhauma Bhattacharya. And he told Sravabhauma Bhattacharya, now you please go and take darshan of Lord Jagannath. So Sravabhauma Bhattacharya went to darshan of Lord Jagannath. At the temple of Lord Jagannath, he met Jagadananda and Damodar, who were the 2 associates who were staying with Lord Chaitanya most of the time. And together they all came back to the house of Sravabhauma Bhattacharya. As they were coming back, they brought a lot of Jagannath's Mahaprasad. And as they were coming back, this is Sravabhauma Bhattacharya compiled 2 special verses glorifying Lord Chaitanya on palm leaves. And as they were coming back, Sravabhauma Bhattacharya gave those palm leaves to Jagadananda Prabhu, Jagadananda Pandit. And he told Jagadananda Pandit, I have compiled something as a small offering to Lord Chaitanya, because those verses were in glorification of Lord Chaitanya. But he said, rather than me giving it, can you, because you are so close to the Lord, can you offer it, Lord Chaitanya? So Jagadananda and Damodar, along with the Mahaprasad, they came back to Lord Chaitanya. They were about to go in with the prasad and the palm leaf. Mukunda Datta, the other very close devotee and associate of Lord Chaitanya. Because Lord Chaitanya, if you remember, when he entered Jagannath Puri, he came with these 4 devotees, right? Came with Mukunda Datta, Nityananda Prabhu, Jagadananda Pandit, and Damodar Pandit. Correct? 5 of them came together. So Mukunda Datta saw, oh, Jagadananda Pandit and Damodar Pandit are coming with some Mahaprasad. What is this palm leaf? So quickly Mukunda said, wait, what is this? I want to see. And he saw that these are verses compiled by Sravabhauma Bhattacharya. And immediately, Mukunda Datta, before the verses could go to Lord Chaitanya, he immediately wrote down those verses on the walls of the house, which Lord Chaitanya and all of them were staying. Outside the room, he wrote those 2 verses. And why? You just know. And then he gave those verses back and he said, okay, now you can go and give to Lord Chaitanya. So Jagadananda Pandit gave the Mahaprasad to Lord Chaitanya, and he also said, oh Lord, these 2 verses Bhattacharya has asked to pass to you. So Lord Chaitanya took those verses and started reading. So I'll tell you the translation of those 2 verses. Are very, very beautiful verses. Very beautiful Sanskrit verses. Actually, they are very sweet. They are very famous verses actually, which we often devotees recite to glorify Lord Chaitanya. So the first verse is Vairagya Vidya Nija Bhakti Yoga Shikshartham Eka Purusha Puranaha Sri Krishna Chaitanya Shariradhari Kripa Budhiryas Tamaham Prapadye. Let me take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Sri Krishna, who has descended in the form of Lord Chaitanya to teach us a real knowledge. His devotional service and detachment from whatever does not foster Krishna consciousness. He has descended because he is an ocean of mercy. Pam Budhir, let me surrender unto his lotus feet. And then the next verse, I will also say, is also very beautiful. I'll go through the translation in the interest of time. Let my consciousness, which is like honeybee, take shelter of the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who has just now appeared as Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to teach the ancient system of devotional service to himself. This system had almost been lost due to the influence of. So as soon as Lord Chaitanya read these 2 verses on the palm leaf, Lord Chaitanya, even though he is Krishna himself, he never liked to be referred to as God. To set the right example. So as soon as he read these 2 verses, he acted as if he was angry and he immediately tore the palm leaves and threw it away. And Mukunda Datta exactly knew what Lord Chaitanya will do, and that's why he copied the verses up front. So that the verses don't become lost for all time to come. And that is why the verses are even available to us up to this day. So in this way, Sravabhauma Bhattacharya became addicted to chanting the holy names, serving the devotees, And being a continuous, constant associate of Lord Chaitanya, he became a part of the inner circle. So one day, another pastime, we'll conclude in 5 minutes. We're almost towards the end of the chapter. One day, Sravabhauma Bhattacharya came in front of Lord Chaitanya and offered obeisances, and he started reciting a particular verse. There's a very famous verse from Lord Brahma's prayers in the 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavad, a very famous verse which all of you must have heard. Tatte nukampam susumikshamano bhunjanamevatmakritam vipakam ridvag vapu vir vidadam namaste jiveta yo mukti pade sadayabha. The translation is like this, is a very important verse. One who seeks your compassion and thus tolerates all kind of adverse conditions due to karma of his past deeds, engages always in your devotional service with his mind, words, and body, and who always offers obeisances unto you, is certainly a bona fide candidate for becoming your unalloyed devotee. So as he was reciting that verse ends with by saying, with the word Mukti Pade. But Sravabhauma Bhattacharya changed the word Mukti Pade in that particular verse to Bhakti Pade. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu caught that particular adjustment with Sravabhauma Bhattacharya. He said, "No, Sravabhauma Bhattacharya, this verse is very nice, but why you change the word from Mukti Pade to Bhakti Pade? What is your purpose? Why you are twisting the verses of Shastra?" Says Sravabhauma Bhattacharya, "Oh Lord, what can I do? Since the day you have transformed me from a dry Vedantist to a devotee, now I'm not interested in Mukti anymore. If I hear the word Mukti also, my mind becomes agitated. I only want Bhakti because I have realized that Bhakti is beyond and higher than Mukti. So, I have taken the liberty to do little bit adjustment." So it is said that there are 5 kinds of Mukti, right? The scripture says there is Sayujya, Samipya, Sarupya, Salukya, and Sarshti. So Sravabhauma Bhattacharya said, I know that generally devotees don't mind accepting the other 4, but Sayujya we don't accept because Sayujya is to merge into the Lord. But the other 4, being on the same abode, same planet as the Lord, being having the same opulences like the Lord, being near physically proximity to the Lord, and so on and so forth. Samipya, Salukya, Sarupya having a form similar to the Lord, devotees don't mind accepting because they can still render devotional service. But devotees never accept Sayujya. A pure devotee, for him, Sayujya is hellish. He never likes. In fact, there are 2 kinds of Sayujya Mukti. Sayujya Mukti means a Mukti of oneness with the Lord. One kind of Sayujya Mukti is merging into the Brahman effulgence of the Lord, and one kind of Sayujya Mukti is merging into the body of the Supreme Lord. And Sravabhauma Bhattacharya says, and merging into the body of the Lord is even worse than merging into the effulgence of Brahman. Actually, I know that Sayujya is bad, other types of Mukti are okay, but somehow because of my background, as soon as I hear the word Mukti, I just feel repelled. So please don't mind. But, I just can't tolerate it. So Lord Chaitanya understood what he's trying to say. Okay, what you're saying is not wrong, but this is not the right way. You cannot go and, whether I like, you like, who likes, you cannot go and adjust. You should understand why Vyasadeva has used the word Mukti Pade rather than Bhakti Pade. And then Lord Chaitanya gave the real explanation of the word Mukti Pade. Says the word Mukti Pade Sadaya Bhak, actually Mukti Pad. Who is Mukti Pad? Mukunda, the giver of liberation, is Mukti Pad because Mukti lies at the lotus feet of Mukunda, Lord Hari. That's why actually the word Muktipad is referring to the lotus feet of the Lord. So actually you don't have to be disturbed. This is not referring to personal liberation. It means that a devotee who has this kind of an attitude, who always remains tolerant in all difficulties and continues to render devotional service, will certainly attain the lotus feet of the Lord. That is what it means. So Sravabhauma said, yes, my Lord, I accept whatever you are saying. You are the boss. Know perfectly all meaning of all scriptures. So thank you. But still, for me, as far as I am concerned, I better stay away from the word Mukti. So Lord Chaitanya was very amused, All the devotees were so amused that a personality who was so attached to Gyan and Mukti had suddenly become so transformed. So all the great personalities around Jagannath Puri could understand. I mean, after Sravabhauma Bhattacharya's transformation, everybody could understand that this Sri Krishna Chaitanya is not an ordinary sannyasi. He must be the Supreme Lord because, he has made this kind of transformation. And many other devotees and personalities came and took shelter of the Lord. It is said another great personality known as Kashi Mishra, he came and took shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord. In fact, the Lord later stays in the home of Kashi Mishra. That we'll discuss later. So this brings us to the conclusion of today's discussion. So essentially, today's discussion is about the great deliverance of this Sravabhauma Bhattacharya. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami gives a special blessing. He says, one who hears with faith and love these pastimes concerning Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's meeting with Sravabhauma Bhattacharya, very soon he will become free from this kind of Jnana related speculation and attachment to fruitive activity, karma and jnana. And very soon he will attain the lotus feet of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Rivo. So all this is the blessing for all of us. And saying this, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami concludes the chapter, praying at the lotus feet of Rupa and Raghunath, Shri Rupa and Shri Raghunath, always desiring their mercy. I, Krishnadas, narrate Chaitanya Charitamrita. There. Thank you. Any questions, any comments?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes, Sridhar Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, this just now you said like Vedanta, right? So the Veda Anta. So what exactly does it mean?
So Vedas are predominantly dealing with leading a happy life in this world. And the last part of the Vedas is dealing with how to transcend this world and attain the supreme destination. So Vedas are said to have 4 parts. The Samhitas, the Brahmanas, the Aranyakas, and the Upanishads. So the Samhitas, Brahmanas, and Aranyak, I don't want to go into too much detail, but these 3 sections deal with various kind of ritualistic ceremonies, which is Karma Kanda. But the last part of the Vedas, which are known as the Upanishads, the Vedas actually deal with the real goal of life and the philosophy of attaining it. Philosophy and the process of attaining it. And that is why they are known as the Veda Anta, the end of Vedic knowledge. If you recollect in the Bhagavad Gita itself, Krishna tells Arjuna, Traigunya Vishaya Veda Nistraigunya Bhavarjuna, that the Vedas mainly deal with the 3 modes of nature because these 3 parts deal with the 3 modes of nature. But you go beyond the 3 modes. Nistraigunya Bhavarjuna. So the Vedanta is aimed at Nistraigunya. So Vedanta, in very simple words, is that part of the Vedas which is not focused on fruitive activity or attainments in this world, but which is aimed at liberation and beyond. Veda Anta. And primarily, the Vedanta is comprised of the Upanishads. Samhitas, Brahmanas, Aranyakas, and Upanishads. These are the four kinds of compilations in the Vedas. And the Upanishads constitute the last word, final instructions of the Vedas. That is why they are known as Veda. The summary of the Vedanta, of all the Vedanta, because each Veda has Vedanta, has Upanishads. 4 Vedas, each Veda has Upanishads. There are a total of 108 Upanishads. All of them are summarized together by Vyasadeva in the Vedanta Sutra. And the Bhagavad is the natural commentary on the Vedanta Sutras, the devotional commentary. And Shankaracharya has given a Mayavadi commentary on the same Vedanta Sutras, which is known as Shariraka Bhashya.
And these 4 Vedas, Prabhuji, Samaveda, Yajurveda, these 4 Vedas only related to the 4 categories you just explained, Prabhuji.
Yeah, all the Vedas. Of course, certain Vedas are more focused on certain aspects. Sama is more related to the singing of hymns and so on and so forth. But the point is, each of the Vedas have Upanishads. So this, what I mentioned as the 4 parts, is true for all the 4 Vedas. Each Veda is organized like this. See, originally the Veda was one. Originally the Veda is one, but the Veda by Vyasa compiled by breaking it into parts. Why he broke it into parts, the one Veda into 4 parts, and this is mentioned in the Bhagavad as well, because he wanted to pass a certain part to a certain disciple, because it was too difficult for one person to learn all of it as Kali Yuga was beginning. So he broke it into 4 parts and taught certain parts to certain disciples and said, you carry on disciplic succession teaching this part of the Vedas. So he divided it and organized it into a particular way. But ultimately, for a person who's executing the Vedic Dharma, one has to see the whole Veda in totality, because the different Vedas actually complement each other. They're not fully independent works. Independent in the sense, to perform a Vedic ceremony, you need to consider aspects from all the 4 Vedas, at least 3, if not the 4th. So the 4th is Atharva. Atharva is deals with more of Tantra and other things, but mainly the 3 Vedas: Rig, Yajur, and Sama.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Yeah. Okay, let me go. Okay, anything else? Okay, so we have completed chapter 6, and we'll continue with the pastimes in the next session. So I'll see you all on Saturday. There we'll continue our discussion on the Srimad Bhagavad. Thank you very much. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki Jai. Jai Shri Prabhupada.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.